I'm Malgosia Wilk, and I'm professor of instruction in the Department of Biology at UTA. I was one of the first authors publishing OER.
My name is Julian. I am a broadcast journalism specialist in the Department of Communication at the University of Texas at Arlington, and my specialty is Hispanic media. We must remember that in Texas, 40% of the population is of Hispanic descent, and nationwide is about 18%. The changing demographics, these growth that we see in the Hispanic community truly have a socioeconomic and political impact at the national level. So it is vital for us to be able to have an OER that educates Spanish language media journalists in Spanish, but under the American system.
Hi, my name is Habib Ahmari. I'm an assistant professor at the Civil Engineering Department at UTA. In 2018, a group of undergraduate students and graduate students helped me out to develop this OER. We developed the OER textbook as well as 12 educational videos and 11 worksheets for a student to prepare their laboratory report. The project was completed in 2018 as a first draft. We published the OER online, and then this has been used since then at the UTA and around the world by many universities and many students in US and other countries.
As the Director of Research Data Services at UTA Libraries and the instructor for Public Health Informatics, I believe that data use requires context and it requires a unique set of skills and expertise. Therefore, I've partnered with Dr. Kenton Ramsey, who's Assistant Professor of Digital Humanities and African American Studies within the Department of English, to develop an OER around data literacy. It's called the Data Notebook.
So when we developed this OER, we did an experiment to see how the OER would impact the students' time on preparing their lab report. So we implemented the OER in 2018, but also we collected the data in 2017 and we compared them. When we did the comparison, we found that the students save about 4 to 6 hours per lab report, and when you add those numbers together for 10 reports and the number of students per year, we figure out that overall the UTA students benefited $30,000, or they saved $30,000 in time only in 1 year using the OER.
The first semester after the manual was published, the students were delighted. I stopped getting emails about what is and what is not on the exam. They had all the homework in one place and the grades went up and the grumbling went down.
So the Data Notebook is something we've been piloting. We've been using it for data training, fellowships, institutes, and other environments. Dr. Ramsey has also been using it in his course, and we've been seeking feedback so that it's really user-led and it speaks to those who will be using it in the future. We've had a lot of positive feedback from both students, faculty we've asked to review the content we've had so far, and from developing new programs and having the original content already created and not having to come up with curriculum all over again every single time.
So as part of the research we did on the impact of the OER on the students' performance in engineering, we used the data we collected based on the traditional way of teaching fluid mechanics course in 2017 and spring 2018. And we compared it with the post-implementation, and we found that there was an increase of at least 5% in the students' overall grade and 5 to 10% increase of the students' performance in other components of the course, which are basically quizzes and lab report grades.
They basically took the manual that I had and started replacing figures. So after short training, they knew how to search public domain and what CC licenses were. And one of them, Andrea, was so talented that when she couldn't find a suitable picture, she just drew it. And the manual and my subsequent books have several of her hand drawings. I would like to mention the impact it had on the students' contributors, because it was a tremendous impact. Like, you know, their self-value went up. They basically, you know, felt like they are doing something very, very valuable and relevant to their future education in medical school and dental school where they were applying.
We incorporate open pedagogy in all of our courses. It's a component of our experiential learning structure. So our courses involve assignments that students can then take and use when they're on interviews or they're showing their skill set. That can be anything from building a website that educate around healthy people topics, or some students actually contributed to an OER specifically for my public health informatics class. They learned and understood the concepts, and once they were able to do that, they translated it into chapters for the purpose of being concise and easily understood by an undergraduate student.
The cool thing also is that we're making this possible for everyone. It's not only for UTA, it's for any institution who would like to use this content. So right now we have about 12 universities looking at this content, using all or part of this content into their programs. And this goes all the way down to South America. So we're very excited about this. I think this is something that actually not only adds to our program, but is also an OER that listens to our students. So involving students into the process of producing this content is important. I have students from Mexico, I have students from El Salvador, I have students from Venezuela, I have students from Cuba, I have students from Colombia, from Argentina. And when you listen to different idioms and you listen to different questions from students coming from different countries, then you're able to enrich truly what you include in that textbook.
Since I started teaching at UTA, I developed my own course notes and shared with my students. But that impact just limited the impact on the UTA students. But when I first developed my OER, I could share it with many universities, many students, and now they are using it in different institutions. So it has a lot of impact on me in terms of basically being involved in other type of research on OER. I have contacted by many universities. They are taking portion of this OER to develop their own OER.
For this project, I also paid a couple student stipends for the general editing of the textbook. And right now, I'm looking forward, I already know it's going to happen, to have the OER at UTA help me with illustrating and copy editing my next projects before they're going to be published.
This project was funded by UTA OER program initiatives with a small funding, but it had a lot of impact on many universities that are using it, many students that are using it. And in fact, I learned that we can do more, especially during this pandemic. I figured out that with the OER available for many students, that they had to go to the lab is shut down, they cannot do it, but with the educational videos, they can continue their education. So if you think about the future, and we plan for that as we are doing now during the pandemic, probably we should be able to develop more resources for students they can use in the future. And also the other thing I learned is the OER is very different from the traditional textbooks. You can be very creative in putting lots of material in online OER that you cannot do it with the traditional books. For example, we embedded the educational videos in the OER, our OER, but it cannot be in the paper textbook, in fact. So basically, there's a lot of things we can do with the OER, and then we just took the first step.
The libraries have been very supportive of our creation of an OER regarding data literacy. We received the 2019 UTA Cares Innovation Award for the Data Notebook, an interactive introduction to data, and we're really thankful and grateful for the support for moving toward open.
So it's less, or at least I see it as less of a monetary value, like zero cost course material, but students really appreciate customization. They know what's going to be on the test, what is not. They know what nomenclature I'm using, and they are expected to know. And I have to mention that there are a lot of discrepancies in medical books, and they comment on how easy and how well written my book is as compared to traditional textbooks. They're mostly geared for medical professionals. So all seems to be win-win situation with this new project.
We're also putting together forward an OER that advances not only the interests of the industry, the interest of technology companies, but it also advances the interest of academia.
And also, it was well received within our college and the department. In fact, a few months ago, they asked me to give a presentation to the department, how to develop an OER and how to use it. So basically, it's kind of the work that many of our faculty are just following now to develop the OER, especially during this pandemic that our resources are very limited to the students.
The easiest way to get involved in OER is to adopt OER and take what's openly available and use it for your course. There are numerous OER available out there and in numerous formats, from readings, activities, entire courses, and video. And that's where I began. I started by adopting OER that were already available or free content. And I'm really excited to be involved in the participatory method of developing OER, and this idea that OER are iterative, so they can be put out there into the world. And as updates happen, for example, there was a lot of COVID content in our OER for current day examples, and they can be easily replaced with new examples as the news changes and as public health issues shift and new issues arise.
So it was a no-brainer. OER, I believe, is the way to go. OER is definitely how I see education moving forward. And whether we like it or not, that's the future. And let's make of this challenge an opportunity. I jump on it right away. I couldn't say no. This is exactly what I was looking for.